The story of Jesus calming the storm begins with a simple yet profound setting. After a long day of teaching parables to the crowds, Jesus and his disciples found themselves by the Sea of Galilee. This body of water, surrounded by hills, was known for its sudden and unpredictable storms due to the unique geography. The Sea of Galilee lay nearly 700 feet below sea level, with cool mountain air often clashing with the warm air over the water, creating rapid and violent weather changes. For Jesus, this was no ordinary day. It was an opportunity to teach a spiritual lesson that would resonate throughout history. Jesus, fully human yet fully divine, had spent the day teaching the crowds about the kingdom of God. His parables were rich with spiritual truth but required interpretation, both for the disciples and for those who listened. By the evening, Jesus was exhausted, a reminder of his humanity. He suggested to his disciples, "Let us go over to the other side," referring to the eastern shore of the Sea of Galilee. This statement carried significance, as the other side was predominantly Gentile territory, foreshadowing Jesus' mission to reach all people. The disciples, many of whom were fishermen, quickly prepared the boat. Leaving the crowd behind, they set out, taking Jesus with them just as he was. The boat was likely a small fishing vessel, typical of the time, sturdy but not designed for enduring harsh weather. Several other boats accompanied them, emphasizing the communal nature of Jesus' ministry. As they set sail, the tranquil evening provided an ideal moment for reflection. The disciples may have been discussing the day's events, marveling at the wisdom of Jesus' teachings, or simply enjoying the quiet as they rowed across the darkening waters. Meanwhile, Jesus, physically drained, fell asleep on a cushion in the stern of the boat. This act of resting amid the journey revealed both his humanity and his deep trust in God. Little did the disciples know that their peaceful crossing would soon turn into a test of faith. This setting, tranquil yet brimming with potential for the unexpected, laid the foundation for one of the most powerful demonstrations of Jesus' divine authority. The simplicity of the scene belied the profound spiritual truths that were about to unfold, truths that would challenge the disciples to confront their fears and deepen their understanding of who Jesus truly was. As the disciples rowed further into the sea, the serene atmosphere quickly changed. A sudden and violent storm arose, typical for the Sea of Galilee. Strong winds whipped across the water, churning the once calm waves into towering swells. The storm struck with such ferocity that the disciples, seasoned fishermen familiar with the sea, were caught off guard. Water began to pour into the boat, threatening to capsize it. The storm was no ordinary squall. It was a tempest that tested the limits of human endurance. The wind roared like a wild beast, and the waves crashed against the boat with relentless fury. The disciples struggled to keep the vessel afloat, frantically bailing out water while fighting to maintain control. Their efforts seemed futile against the sheer power of nature. Fear gripped them as they realized that their lives were in grave danger. The storm's intensity symbolized the chaos and unpredictability of life's trials. It mirrored the challenges that often arise without warning, leaving individuals feeling helpless and overwhelmed. For the disciples, this was more than a physical ordeal. It was a spiritual test. They had witnessed Jesus perform miracles and teach with authority, yet in the face of imminent danger, their faith wavered. Amid the chaos, Jesus remained asleep in the stern of the boat. His peaceful slumber contrasted sharply with the disciples' panic, a poignant reminder of his complete trust in God's sovereignty. The image of Jesus sleeping through the storm invites reflection on his dual nature as both fully human, needing rest, and fully divine, unshaken by the forces of nature. Desperation drove the disciples to wake Jesus. Their voices rose above the storm as they cried out, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" This question revealed their fear and doubt. In their moment of crisis, they questioned whether Jesus truly cared for their well-being. Their cry for help, though tinged with reproach, demonstrated their recognition of Jesus' power and authority, even if their faith was not yet fully formed. This moment of panic underscores the universal human experience of feeling abandoned in times of trouble. It highlights the tension between faith and fear, a theme that resonates across generations. The disciples' plea for help set the stage for a divine intervention that would reveal the true nature of Jesus' power and the depth of his care for his followers. In response to the disciples' cries, Jesus rose from his place of rest. Standing in the midst of the storm's fury, he demonstrated a calm authority that transcended the chaos around him. With a simple command, he rebuked the wind and said to the waves, "Peace, be still." Immediately, the wind ceased, and the sea became perfectly calm. The transformation was instantaneous and miraculous, leaving no doubt about the divine power behind it. The sudden stillness was as startling as the storm itself. The once roaring wind fell silent, and the turbulent waves settled into a glassy surface. The disciples, who moments earlier had been fighting for their lives, now stood in awe of the man who could command the elements with his voice. Their fear of the storm was replaced by a reverent fear of Jesus' authority. This miracle was not just a display of power. It was a revelation of Jesus' divine identity. By calming the storm, he demonstrated his sovereignty over creation, affirming that he was not merely a teacher or prophet, but the Son of God. The disciples' question, "Who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him," captured their growing realization of his true nature. This event marked a turning point in their understanding of who they were following. Jesus then turned to his disciples and asked, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" His words gently rebuked their lack of trust, while inviting them to reflect on their relationship with him. The storm had tested their faith, revealing both their vulnerability and their need to rely on Jesus. His question was not meant to condemn, but to challenge them to grow in their faith and confidence in his care. This moment highlighted the contrast between Jesus' unshakable trust in God and the disciples' fear. It served as a reminder that faith is not the absence of storms, but the assurance of God's presence and power within them. Jesus' command over nature reinforced the truth that nothing is beyond his control, offering hope and reassurance to all who face life's tempests. The calming of the storm was more than a dramatic rescue. It was a lesson in faith. Through this miracle, Jesus taught his disciples that faith is not merely intellectual assent, but a deep trust in his character and power. The disciples' fear and doubt revealed their limited understanding of who Jesus was, but the miracle challenged them to move beyond fear and embrace faith. Faith, as demonstrated in this story, involves trusting in Jesus even when circumstances seem dire. The disciples had witnessed his miracles and heard his teachings, yet the storm exposed the gap between their knowledge and their trust. Jesus' question, "Do you still have no faith?" was an invitation to reflect on their journey with him and to grow in their reliance on him. This lesson extends to all believers, reminding them that life storms are opportunities to deepen their faith. The challenges and uncertainties of life often reveal the limits of human strength and the need for divine intervention. Just as the disciples turned to Jesus in their moment of desperation, believers are called to turn to him in times of trial, trusting that he is both willing and able to bring peace. The story also underscores the importance of Jesus' presence. The disciples' fear stemmed from their perception that Jesus was indifferent to their plight. Yet his actions demonstrated that he was always in control, even when he seemed distant or unresponsive. His presence in the boat was a reassurance that they were not alone, a truth that continues to bring comfort to believers today. Ultimately, the lesson on faith calls for a shift in perspective. Instead of focusing on the storm, believers are invited to focus on the one who commands the wind and waves. This story serves as a timeless reminder that Jesus is sovereign over all creation and that his peace is available to those who trust in him.